Part 52. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 515. 508, Survival from Desperate Situation. Drago sat in the driver's seat, stepped on the accelerator to the bottom, the engine of the armed off-road vehicle let out a howling sound, accelerated to a speed of 100 km per hour in a few seconds, and drove away all the way. At this time, Ni Dong and Marlo had just driven the armored vehicle out of the bushes, but all they could see was the dust raised from behind the armed off-road vehicle. Just as Drago turned on the electronic system of the off-road vehicle, he heard a siren. His face changed. It's an active radar wave. No wonder we couldn't get rid of the pursuers. It turned out to be locked by the radar. Can the radar in this world lock people so accurately? Hank asked in disbelief. Drago sighed, it seems to be my problem. My body has been mechanically modified, and it is easy for the radar to lock me. It doesn't matter, it's not your fault. This time we also had a good harvest. We have confirmed the status quo of Torch City and the size of the army. Now let's escape first. Chun Yuyan said. Ni Dong is still chasing after him, but the distance between him and the off-road vehicle is getting farther and farther. The armored vehicles they drove were modified from M2 infantry fighting vehicles, which were formerly American products. Later, with the disintegration of the American regime, this type of infantry fighting vehicles was also widely circulated in the world, and GDI, which was born on G7, also I don't care about this kind of armored car that has fallen behind. Therefore, during the last war, the Brotherhood of Nod used a large number of M2 infantry fighting vehicles. On this basis, various weapons and equipment such as the M2F light tank have been developed, and this command armored vehicle is also one of the derivative products. But at this time, it is really difficult for this M2 armored vehicle, which can run more than 60 km per hour at most, to catch up with the armed off-road vehicle. Angry flames flickered in Ni Dong's eyes, and he said in a low voice, "Do you think you can run out of my palm like this? Too naive. Pay attention to all units. Pursue immediately. Base. Send out helicopters. Give me back at all costs. Stop this SUV." As soon as the words fell, the surrounding vehicles that had participated in surrounding the bushes all turned around and sped towards the armed off-road vehicle where Chun Yuyan was. Another armed off-road vehicle drove over, the driver jumped out of the vehicle, Ni Dong and Marlo got on the vehicle immediately, and rushed towards Chun Yuyan. At this time, 4 attacking motorcycles rushed to the front and soon followed the armed off-road vehicle. In the fully enclosed cockpit, the motorcycle driver looked at the off-road vehicle in front of him coldly and pressed the button. Whoosh whoosh. Several rockets were immediately launched from the quadruple rocket launchers attacking the 2 sides of the motorcycle, and the rockets shot straight over with a long tail flame. Drago was alerted when he was spotted by the fire control radar, and he began to evade irregularly in the off-road vehicle. Boom. 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 Rockets exploded around the off-road vehicle, and the violent shockwave hit the body of the off-road vehicle, almost overturning the entire off-road vehicle. Hanka didn't wait for Chun Yuyan to speak, he had already sat in the gunner's position, manipulating the remote control machine gun to shoot at the attack motorcycle behind him. The armed off-road vehicle is equipped with dual-mounted 12.7mm high-level dual-purpose machine guns with fierce firepower. Driven by the motor, the base rotates 180 degrees and aims at the rear of the off-road vehicle. Da-da-da-da. A dense rain of bullets was fired, and an attacking motorcycle was hit by bullets, the fragile armor was shot through like paper, and the motorcycle exploded and fell apart, turning into a ball of fire rolling on the ground. The rest of the motorcycles immediately scattered around. Hank continued to fire, but failed to hit again because of the bumps of the car. The attacking motorcycle in the rear was also launching rocket attacks, but the accuracy was still poor at this high-speed driving. Although the explosions continued to explode around the off-road vehicle, they did not pose much threat. Chen Yuyan turned around and kicked out the rear glass of the off-road vehicle, and then a terrifying robot appeared out of nowhere in a blue light curtain and fell behind. After the terrifying robot landed, it immediately bounced up and rushed straight to the attacking motorcycle behind it. With a bang, the terrorist robot and an attack motorcycle collided head-on. The robot was smashed to pieces immediately, and the attack motorcycle also lost its balance, and the body tilted and fell to the ground. The motorcycle rolled continuously under the action of inertia, and fell to pieces, and then the fuel tank exploded, with a loud noise, and flames rose into the air. Seeing this, the remaining two attack motorcycles quickly moved away from each other and watched from both sides of the off-road vehicle. Chen Yuyan picked up the binoculars and found that there were still a large number of attack motorcycles and armed off-road vehicles chasing in the distance, and his heart sank. And even worse is yet to come. I only heard a burst of engine roar from far and near, coming from the sky. 3 whole-body black helicopters flew towards the side quickly. The shape of this helicopter is somewhat similar to the A-64 Apache gunship, but it does not have a Dragon mount for mounting missiles, and the fuselage is more rounded and streamlined. Oops! It's Nod's Harpy helicopter! Drago exclaimed, if we don't kill these helicopters, we can't escape. Chen Yuyan immediately gave instructions to Unlimited Base to start producing Mistral individual air defense missiles, but it is still hard to say whether this previous generation of air defense missiles will have any effect on the advanced helicopters produced by Nod in 2030. He took out another M41 a one-pulse rifle and fired towards the sky. Hank also operated the remote control machine gun to raise the muzzle and fired violently at the 3 incoming Harpy helicopters. But this is not a movie after all. In fact, at the speed of a helicopter, it is difficult to be hit by point-to-point firepower like a machine gun. So don't look at Chen Yuyan and the others who seem to be very powerful, but they are not very threatening. On the contrary, the 3 helicopters began to lower their altitude and entered the shooting position. Chen Yuyan hurriedly took out a Northwest Wind individual air defense missile and started aiming, but as expected, this Harpy helicopter has a very good stealth performance. Chen Yuyan aimed for a long time, but the fire control system failed to lock the target. At the same time, the 3 Harpy helicopters opened fire. The 3-tube 30mm caliber chain cannon installed on the nose of the helicopter began to rotate, and the large caliber cannon shells poured down like raindrops. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. A bullet from a large caliber machine gun can create a cloud of smoke several meters high when it hits the ground. Even if it hits just one shot, Chen Yuyan and his off-road vehicle will be completely torn apart. Drago slammed the steering wheel, and the off-road vehicle turned abruptly, narrowly dodging the rain of bullets, but the helicopter was still hot on its heels. Get ready to jump off the car. Get rid of the helicopter first. The Jeep under production will be ready soon. Chen Yuyan said loudly. At this time, the 3 Harpy helicopters adjusted their positions again, and another burst of cannon shells poured down. Jump out of the car! Chen Yuyan yelled, kicked the car door and jumped off. Hank and Drago followed suit, jumping out of the car. Almost at the same time, countless cannon shells plowed out a long line of smoke and dust on the ground, passing between them, hitting the off-road vehicle. Boom! There was a violent explosion, and the off-road vehicle was smashed into a pair of scrap iron. The Harpy helicopter fired again, but at this moment, a sudden change occurred. The rain of countless bullets falling from the sky stopped immediately. Seeing this weird scene, Chen Yuyan was horrified, and suddenly he looked up, only to see a figure standing in mid-air. Thank you for the 100 starting coins rewarded by the little soldier. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 516. 509 You are the second. The scene in front of me is terrifying. Chen Yuyan saw hundreds of 30mm caliber warheads half a meter long in front of him, hovering in the air as if time had stopped, and the 3 Harpy helicopters were also fixed in the air. His gaze couldn't help but stay on the figure standing in the air, and that figure was also slowly descending, allowing Chun Yuyan to see it clearly. This is a tall, hot figure, bumpy, and a bit exaggerated in size, woman. First, there is a piece of light green long hair, like a piece of light green satin, fluttering in the wind. Then there was a black military uniform, straight and mighty, decorated with some scarlet lace, and a green armband on his arm. Finally, there is the short skirt, long legs and high-heeled boots that people can't look straight at. What also made Chun Yuyan a little concerned was how she kept the big-brimmed military cap on her head from falling off and the short skirt from falling off in the hunting wind. But think about it carefully, this woman can even stop the cannonballs, and it is normal for her skirt to move against the laws of physics, right? The woman fell to the ground, and almost at the same time, the bullets all over the sky also fell with crackling, falling all over the ground. She turned her head slowly, and among those slightly slender phoenix eyes, the emerald green pupils exuded a sharp light, and there was also the arrogance that looked down on the world and ignored all life. This is a very beautiful woman, about 30 years old, but Chun Yuyan can't connect her with the word beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it's not because she's not beautiful, but because standing in front of her, you can only think of strength, death, chill, cruelty, blood, and dictatorship, and they won't be associated with any beautiful words at all. Yes, this is her terrifying aura. Coupled with the pitch-black military uniform she was wearing, and her tall figure approaching 1.8 meters in high heels, every cell in Chun Yuyan's brain was warning him, stay away from this woman. The farther the better. Otherwise, maybe in the next second, we'll die. Chun Yuyan never doubted that this woman had the ability to kill him instantly. Think about the hundreds of rounds of 30mm machine gun shells, how powerful the kinetic energy is contained in these shells. But she stopped all these shells. Just this hand, according to the law of energy conservation, the energy contained in her is comparable to a warship. The woman didn't speak, but just stood there and looked at Chun Yuyan. Chun Yuyan didn't speak either, just stood there and looked at her. You've had a revelation, haven't you? The woman finally spoke. To be honest, her voice was not very pleasant, it was a little deep and slightly hoarse, just like the voice of a nightclub woman who had been smoking and drinking too much for a long time. It's impossible for the woman in front of me to go to the night show, but there will definitely be a lot of tobacco and alcohol. I did get a revelation that Nod is about to make a comeback. Chun Yuyan replied flatly. The woman turned her head slightly, and straightened her military cap with a large brim. Chun Yuyan noticed that her cap badge was a green dragon's head, vivid and terrifying, as if it was three-dimensional, exactly the same as the pattern on her armband. If someone else talked to me like that, then he would have been torn to pieces. The woman said lightly, but you are different from them. Then why don't we save those temptations and get straight to the point? When are you going to America? Do I need to tell you? Chun Yuyan asked rhetorically. A cold smile appeared on the corner of the woman's mouth, but her eyes were still fixed on Chun Yuyan. Yes, you must tell me. Chun Yuyan's thoughts turned, and he immediately figured out the stakes. With the strength of the woman in front of me, it is estimated that another person like me will only end up in death, and she is giving herself a favor by saving herself. And if she told her plan, the worst result would be that her expeditionary army's information would be leaked and the entire army would be wiped out, and the Legion of Ruins would be on the verge of disintegration. But why bother? To disintegrate the army of ruins, she can kill herself now, and then go to the city of ruins and spend hours and hours massacring it. And, the most important reason is. Chun Yuyan narrowed his eyes, suddenly smiled, nodded and said, in a month, I will take the expeditionary force to the United States. The woman still said coldly, then after 20 days, the help I give you will be delivered. As for Tai Long, he will not trouble you within 2 months. After 2 months, it will be your private. I don't want to care about grievances. She paused again, and continued, but with the strength of the Iron Dragon, crushing you is like crushing a bug. So, you'd better seize this opportunity to go to the United States and get that key. After finishing speaking, she looked at the approaching pursuers in the distance, and suddenly raised her hand to lightly clench the 3 Harpy helicopters. Boom! Boom! 2 of the helicopters were crushed into a pile of scrap metal as if crushed by an invisible and huge hand. Then it exploded into 2 fireballs in the air and fell down. But the last helicopter was lifted by an invisible force, landed slowly and steadily, and stopped in front of it. The pilot inside had already bled to death from all 7 orifices and could not die anymore. "What is that key?" Chen Yuyan asked. "You'll know it when you see it. Why don't you go by yourself? Whether it's GDI or not, there are some people whose strength even makes me feel afraid, let alone their military strength." The woman was already a little impatient, but she waved her hand gently and said, "Kane, it appeared last week. Although it didn't show up, it has already begun to give orders. Now that the total war is imminent, the entire East District will not be involved in the war for the time being because of the presence of Dragon, but this is only a matter of time. If you don't want to get run over by war, do something about it. Don't waste time on these little things." After finishing speaking, the woman turned around and left, as if she was going up the stairs, stepping up the air step by step, and then slowly flew up to leave. Chen Yuyan looked at her back, and suddenly shouted, "Hey! Are you too?" The woman turned her head to the side, showing a somewhat inexplicable smile, and said meaningfully, "Are you scolding me? So you came here to visit relatives?" Chen Yuyan said. The woman sneered again, and still said, "Are you scolding me?" The same words, but this time obviously meant another meaning, or several meanings. After finishing speaking, she ignored Chen Yuyan, turned around and accelerated suddenly. A powerful air current exploded around her in an instant, and Chen Yuyan felt as if a strong 8th-level wind had hit him. There was smoke and dust everywhere, and even the Harpy helicopter that was parked on the ground was constantly shaken by the air current. When I looked again, the mysterious woman disappeared into the sky almost instantly. Drago looked at the direction in which the woman disappeared, and whispered, "If she wants to kill us, she might not even need to move a finger." "Do you know her?" "Boss Yan." Chen Yuyan looked over there, paused, and replied, "No, I don't know you." Thanks to Lei, Yu, and book friends 1701022008572882 for the 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 517. 510. More than a dozen attack motorcycles, armed off-road vehicles, and tick tanks chased from behind, but there were only 2 burning wrecks of Harpy helicopters, and the wreckage of the off-road vehicle that Chen Yuyan and the others were driving, and nothing else. In the distant sky, a Harpy helicopter can still be vaguely seen going away. Ni Dong and Marlo got out of the car and looked around. Duan Heshan also jumped out of the car and looked around with a solemn expression. Especially Duan Heshan, he couldn't imagine how those intruders escaped. What's even more incredible is that they escaped in an armed off-road vehicle. After being pursued by several attack motorcycles and 3 Harpy helicopters, they actually destroyed 2 helicopters and snatched 1 humming. Excuse me? How on earth can you snatch a gunship flying in the sky while driving an off-road vehicle? For the first time, Duan Heshan felt that his brain cells were not enough. On the other side, Maro walked over to pick up the bullet of a 30mm cannon shell from the ground, with a rather ugly expression on her face. She handed the bullet to Ni Dong, without saying a word. "Experimenter. At least from the gold group. Ni Dong said in a deep voice. If there is an experimenter from the gold group, what is his purpose? Marlowe said. If it is a strong man from Iron Hammer Town, even if he dare not confront our army head-on, he will definitely destroy all the supplies we have piled up here. The defenders here are only 1 or 2,000 humans are not enough to deal with a gold group powerhouse. Ni Dong said. But there is no doubt that those people were rescued by this strong man of the golden group. He also destroyed 2 of our helicopters and captured another one. Marlowe looked at the shadow of the helicopter that had gradually disappeared in the distance. We must report to NOD headquarters about the appearance of the gold group experimenters in the 3rd East area. Ni Dong shook his head. No, right now this is still an in-depth contact, and the other party's attitude is rather strange. In my opinion, it's more like a random act with no other purpose. If you report it like this, if NOD sent a strong man over but couldn't find that person, we will be very passive. At least judging from the current situation of the other party, they still don't want to be enemies with NOD. Mara Wei nodded slightly. At this time, Duan Heshen walked over very carefully and asked, "Excuse me, what do you mean by the Golden Group?" Marlowe cast a glance at him, and snorted coldly, "It's none of your business." The head of the Golden Legion. Ni Dong interrupted Marlowe, and gave an explanation directly, "You should have heard of this name, right?" Duan Heshen nodded. "This is a relatively independent senior military officer in the Brotherhood of NOD, who has great power to rule independently. The reason for this is because every leader of the Golden Legion has the power to fight against an army alone." Ni Dong said. Duan Heshen took a breath. How is it possible? How can a single person fight against a modern army? Even novels dare not write that. It's just that you are ignorant. Mara Wei mocked. Look at the surrounding environment and express your thoughts. Ni Dong said. Duan Heshen began to look around, carefully inspecting the wreckage, and then his eyes fell on the wreckage of the 2 helicopters. His face gradually turned pale. The traces on the wreckage of these 2 helicopters were not caused by the explosion, but were squeezed like this, Duan Heshen said, picking up the warheads on the ground again. These warheads are still intact, indicating that it did not hit any target, and it just landed on the ground, and did not penetrate into the soil. There is only one possibility, that is, it suddenly lost kinetic energy during the flight and fell down. Could it be a person do this? Ni Dong patted him on the shoulder and said, "That's right, welcome to the new world, kid." The helicopter came over the ruins in the south of the ruined city and slowly descended. Inside the ruins, there was a small-scale airport hidden, which was also the location of the newly established Air Force of the Ruins Corps. With the roar of the helicopter engine, a large number of zombie dogs, hunters, and lickers wandering in the ruins, these B.O.Ws raised their heads a little restlessly and looked at this strange metal monster. The ground has received Chenyuan's previous notification that someone has come to receive this helicopter, and this helicopter will also become part of the ruined city's air force. Chenyuan scanned the plane on the way. The Harpy helicopter is only a level 3 technology, and the technical content is not high. Moreover, it is a light reconnaissance helicopter with fast speed, lightweight, and good radar stealth performance. But the problem is that the Harpy helicopter does not have a gantry and cannot mount missiles and rockets. The only weapon is the 3-tube 30mm caliber chain cannon on the nose. The only consolation is that the SCAU-29 chain cannon has excellent performance. The 3-tube rotating design allows it to fire at a rate of 3,000 rounds per minute, and it is so powerful that it can even pose a threat to the top armor of the tank. Ordinary armored vehicles can't withstand a few rounds and will be beaten into scrap iron. Compared with the Harpy helicopter, Chenyuan was more interested in this chain cannon. He plans to arrange a production line to continuously produce the SCAU-29 chain cannon when he has time, produce 50 pieces, and then reverse engineer the technology. But not now. drove back to the command center of Nuwa Base, where Tomoko Gaoliang and Lin Huo were already waiting there. Chen Yuyan walked over and sat down on his work, looked around at everyone, and was silent for a long time before slowly saying, "This time we went to Torch City to investigate. We have confirmed that Torch City is receiving a large number of weapons and equipment from Nod's headquarters, and we have already started combat readiness. And one of their targets almost certainly includes us." "How strong is their army?" Lin Huo asked. "A full armored division, at least. As for the infantry units, it is difficult to determine. According to their mobilization situation, based on the calculation of a population of 300,000, they may be able to pull out 2 infantry divisions under extreme circumstances," Chen Yuyan said in a deep voice. "The power of 3 divisions. Even if the number of armored divisions is a little smaller, there are almost 30,000 people in total. The number of troops alone is equivalent to 4 ruined cities." Gao Liangzi's face paled, and she could hardly maintain her appearance. "That's right." Chen Yuyan nodded. "Then we have no chance of winning at all," Tomoko Gaoliang said. Judging from her expression, she had already begun to waver. Chen Yuyan didn't continue talking, but changed the subject and said, "But there is good news. I saw number 2. Number 2? I remember you said that the army before the Nuwa base extracted the essence of life from you and made 12 superhumanoid weapons, which are your 12 daughters. Yi and 11 are number 1 and number 11, Lin Huo pondered. These daughters are basically all dead, and one of the survivors is number 2. She may also be the chief culprit for destroying Nuwa's base." Chen Yuyan took a deep breath and said, "Her strength has become extremely terrifying now. I think it is at least at the level of the gold group, maybe even stronger. Since it's your daughter, she must be kind to you, right? Will she help us?" Tomoko Gaoliang finally saw a little hope. "Maybe there is help, but you can't count on it. I feel like she doesn't really want to recognize me as a father. The girl is not going to stay, haha." Chen Yuyan made a small joke, and then continued, It should have a lot of connections with the Forsaken, but I don't know how. Anyway, she told me that General Iron Dragon will not attack us within 2 months. That is to say, the good news is that we only have to face 1 enemy. The bad news is that this enemy has the strength of 3 divisions." Lin Huo leaned back, paused and said, "Run away, us. Thanks to Samwick for the reward of 400 starting coins. All Heavens Unlimited Base." Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 518. 511, Brainstorming. However, Chen Yuyan's expression suddenly became extremely serious. He stood up slowly, came to the huge screen in the control center, and said, "The Red Queen, display the aerial picture of the entire ruined city." "Master, the small aerial photography drone will take off immediately, Master." Soon, an aerial picture of the drone appeared on the screen. Only under the camera, the scene of the entire Nuwa base is clearly visible. This is a huge building covering an area of hundreds of thousands of square meters. It looks like a hole. Although there are still some places where the ruins of the original hotel are still hanging, the pure metal trapezoidal building is clearly visible below, and it is magnificent. Around the Nuwa base, power generation facilities, worker and drone factories, and a large loading and unloading square are neatly arranged. Various newly produced weapons and equipment are parked in the loading and unloading square. Inside the base, the scientists of the college have begun to relocate various equipment from the world of Fallout 4, transforming the former experimental base of the Nuwa base into their own scientific research center. Then there is the picture of the Black Wolf base, where there are already many factories. From the B.O.W production line that is only equivalent to a room, to the comprehensive robot factory covering an area of tens of thousands of square meters, various buildings have turned this place into a steel jungle. It was also built on a larger loading and unloading square next to the Black Wolf base, and rows of robots were lining up to join the sequence of the ruined army. There are mainly Iron Guard robots, turret robots, tank robots, and assembly robots. Civilian robots also have a huge array, which are basically NS-4 robots. Afterwards, the picture of the mining area was displayed. The densely packed tiberium crystals here have been much less. Countless worker ant drones and tiberium mining vehicles are busy in the mining area, collecting a large number of tiberium crystals and transporting them to the mining area. To the rear for processing. Behind the mining area, a large number of tiberium power plants and tiberium refining plants were built here to provide a steady stream of energy and material supplies for the development of the entire ruined army. The drones began to take pictures of the residential area again. In the residential area, basically everyone lived in simple apartment buildings made of concrete, and a very clear residential area, commercial area, and agricultural area were formed. There are many houses in the residential area, and the commercial area is also very prosperous. Human residents, NS-4 civilian robots and various protector robots with different functions walk on the street to form a unique landscape. In the agricultural area, there are rows and rows of greenhouses. These are soilless cultivation plant factories, and there are also a small number of artificial meat factories. This place feeds all the residents of the ruined city. Moreover, the roads between Nuwa Base, Black Wolf Base, mining area, residential area, and Iron Hammer Town are constantly being leveled and widened, and more roads have been built. And on the edge of several areas, a large number of worker ant drones are tirelessly cleaning and recycling various ruins day and night like ants, and clearing out large areas of open space. In fact, it is very obvious that under Chinhuyan's continuous construction, the ruined city is developing at a snowballing speed. From 3 small villages and 1 small town in the past, it has developed into a small city with a complete industrial, agricultural and social system. Chinhuyan looked at the screen, without turning back, but asked instead, Lin Huo, since Iron Hammer Town was invaded by Torch City, how long has it been since we joined forces? 3 months. Lin Huo sighed and said, I know what you mean, but if we run away, this advantage of rapid development will disappear. And we are nothing more than ordinary experimenters. The world of Resident Evil? The world of Baldur's Gate? Behind us the power of these 2 worlds is not worth mentioning to the world of Command and Conquer. At that time, we are just a real passerby. Civilians. And such an identity, in the face of the coming global war, what is the result? If you can still accept this result, then run away. Chinhuyan said. Lin Huo laughed and said, of course I know the stakes. I was just joking. This is not the time to be joking. Chinhuyan raised his voice sharply, there are only 2 roads before us. Fight. Or die. There is no third. I will never be content with being ordinary. My greatest strength is handed over to others. Tomoko Gaoliang didn't speak, and she just nodded seriously. In fact, she didn't need to speak, because she surrendered and became Chinhuyan's vassal before, so she could only follow Chinhuyan. Lin Huo was also caught by Chinhuyan's aggressive aura just now, and also understood that the ruined city was their only chance, so he said with a wry smile, what else can I say? Let's fight. Boom. Chinhuyan had already come in front of Lin Huo, slapped the coffee table to pieces, stared into Lin Huo's eyes, and said through gritted teeth, we have to fight hard. Lin Huo finally lowered his head at this time and said, understood. Let's immediately come up with a battle plan and fight Torch City to the end. Relying on a maximum of 2,000 troops to defeat 3 divisions within a month? It's completely impossible. In the combat conference room, Knight shook his head and said with certainty, even if it is an asymmetrical battle, facing more than 20 times it is also a very difficult thing to win with our military strength. What's more, the military gap between us and Torch City is almost the same. How about street fighting? I mean, We have Hammer Town, which has been built as a fortress, and we can use it. If it doesn't work, we can evacuate the residents of the residential area to the Black Wolf base, and then rely on it to fight a street fighting. Lin Huo seriously said. Considering that we have power armor, street fighting is indeed an option. However, even with the help of power armor, our troop strength gap is too large. It is impossible to achieve a 1:20 exchange ratio by relying on street fighting. Knight thought for a while, still shook his head. Chen Yuyan sat in his seat all the time, and didn't watch the discussion of the core members of the Ruin Legion present, just thinking about it. The Wolfpack team can try to destroy the opponent's logistics supplies. No matter which world or era it is, the more modern the army, the more it relies on logistics. We can blow up their power stations, ammunition depots, and fuel depots to make their supplies it's unsustainable. Hank put forward his opinion from his own professional perspective. There is also the production of more second-generation synthetic humans, and conscription among our residents. At present, it should be possible to recruit about 500 recruits, but 1 month is obviously not enough to complete the training. Gao Liangzi said. The Four Eyes have been checking her laptop, she thought for a while, and casually put forward an opinion and said, I think we can also make full use of the T-virus. If the other party's defense of the city is very complete, then we can directly use it from the army. There is one other thing. As she spoke, she turned the laptop in one direction and said, we have just rebuilt a part of Umbrella's B.O.W production line at the Atlantic Research Base, and synthesized some DNA of the sleeping god tyrant, Hypen's DNA, using some remaining research materials. It should be possible to create 1 or 2 sleeping tyrants, and they are currently being cultivated, and they should be fully grown in a week. And I, the righteous friend, the mechanic master. I have also collected enough materials to build 3 quantum-level tank robots. Declare war on the evil army in Torch City. The mechanic master in a robot-like costume said in a very exaggerated tone. Then, he stood up and made a posture of bowing and nodding an arrow. As long as she was in this dress, she seemed to be a different person from the original shyness. At this time, the door of the meeting room suddenly opened, and the mechanical master who was standing by the door and posing was accidentally bumped by the door and fell to the ground with a plop. The helmet of her robot armor also fell off, and the mechanic master immediately turned into the timid female engineer again, holding the helmet and crouching in the corner. I only saw a bald man wearing sunglasses coming in from the door. After he came in, he waved to everyone present and said, "Hey, it's rare to see so many people gathered together. This world is really lively. Ha 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 ha." Chen Yuyan raised his head from his contemplation, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. I'm glad to see that you finally accepted my invitation, Deacon. Does this mean that my intelligence department can finally open? I want to apply for half a year's vacation first. Deacon laughed. Beat Torch City, I'll grant you a 3-day holiday. Chen Yuyan also replied with a half smile. Diagon spread his arms and shook, then carelessly pulled away the sofa where the mechanic master was sitting just now, sat down, put his feet up on the table, lit a cigarette for himself, and exhaled a column of smoke to the sky. Said, I was with Justin Air just now, to verify some things. You know, I never thought that I would work with someone from an academy, and in an academy way. Chen Yuyan frowned and asked, the way of the academy? What kind of way? The method of defeating the 1 armored division plus 2 infantry divisions in Torch City. Isn't the academy good at this? Deacon said. I thought the academy was better at scientific research and synthetic human production? Chen Yuyan smiled slightly. Actually, from your expression, I know you already want to understand the answer. Deacon waved his hand and said, that's right, the molecular teleporter has been moved from that world, and it can be used after debugging. Hearing these words, Chen Yuyan's eyes lit up. Molecular teleporter. All Heaven's unlimited base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 519. 512 Operation begins. Boom boom, huge lightning raged in the air, and the lightning seemed to be wandering in the air like long snakes. Although it is around 1 p.m. now, the weather is already as dark as night. The ion storm descended on the ruined city again, and it was already the fourth time in the last month. All the residents of the ruined city have already returned to their houses, turned off all lights and electronic equipment, and looked out the window with trepidation, unable to fall asleep for a long time. Most of the power supply in the city has been shut down, and only a small part of the necessary power is being transmitted through underground power lines. On this point, Chen Yuyan was very thankful for his foresight. Even when the robot manpower was in short supply, he always maintained a few crab spider-shaped engineering robots to continuously lay underground lines. It is these lines that prevent the entire ruined city from losing all its energy. But even so, all high-precision electronic systems, including the Red Queen, were still shut down to avoid being destroyed by the huge lightning of the ion storm. But everywhere in the ruined city, the shaky figure of the protector robot can still be seen. Protect and serve, protect and serve, protect and serve. The guard-type protector-type robot staggered on the street, repeating this sentence while patrolling. Even if heavy rain poured on them, even if lightning exploded on the lightning protection system of the nearby city, it would have no effect at all. On their foreheads, a searchlight illuminates the front, becoming the only light that can be seen in the ruined city. Among the lightning and thunder of the ion storm, this icy voice undoubtedly gave every resident of the ruined city a sense of security and made them feel warm in their hearts. Not only that, the computer arrays composed of brain-controlled robots in the Universal Robot Factory are still running, and have not been affected by the ion storm at all. In other words, almost all technologies from the world of Fallout 4 are basically immune to ion storms. The Fallout 4 technology, which is based on vacuum tube technology, far outperforms semiconductor materials in terms of resistance to ion storms and electromagnetic pulses. Not to mention that the biggest advantage of various products in the world of Fallout 4 is that the leather is durable, and the kind that will not be affected by wind and sun for 100 or 200 years. Of course, it's not just Fallout 4's tech either. For example, in the ruins of the south of the ruined city, a dangerous experiment is going on. More than a dozen people in raincoats stood in the middle of the secret airport in the rain, looking at an AV-49 Vespa combat aircraft in front of them. The leader was Alan Benny, a scientist from the academy. He stared intently at the AV-49 Vespa in front of him, and then said to the people next to him, "Take off." A few people in raincoats next to them immediately started to make light signals, and the duct turbine engine of this Wasp aircraft immediately began to spin up, and the sound of the engine became louder and louder, but compared to other helicopters, the sound was already very small, not to exceed 100 dB. Then, the aircraft began to lift off slowly, and Alan Benny began to check the vacuum tube computer next to him. The green fonts on the small circular screen were constantly refreshing various data. 100 meters. 200 meters. Continue to climb. 400 meters. Atmospheric pressure change detected. Click. A bolt of lightning strikes from not far away. But the Vespa just wobbled and continued to climb. 1000 meters. Already close to the clouds. The positron content in the air has increased to a dangerous level. Stop climbing. Start cruising. Alan Benny continued to give instructions. The Wasp aircraft began to accelerate, flew forward, and made a circle. The cruising speed is 380 km per hour. Dr. Alan. Now we can confirm that the AV-49 Wasp combat aircraft can be used in the ion storm. The technician next to him shouted very excitedly. Immediately report this result to Boss Yan. Then arrange for someone to dismantle the Vespa aircraft. I want to know as soon as possible how the electronic system of this aircraft defends against electromagnetic phenomena. Alan Benny said loudly. The scope of the ion storm this time is very huge, not only the ruined city, but even some towns on the other side of the torch city. And Shajin town is one of them. The town shrouded in black clouds fell into darkness and dead silence. Almost all the residents had already returned to their houses. Even the garrison in the town just huddled inside the sentry tower, lazily checking the surroundings from time to time with binoculars and searchlights. Click. A flash of lightning flashed by, followed by the light of the lightning, and a sentinel only saw a few black shadows flash by. He rubbed his eyes and turned the searchlight, but found nothing unusual. So he laughed at himself, sat back on the stool, and raised his legs. Click. Another flash of lightning struck. A black figure appeared behind the sentinel at some point. This person should be a woman, wearing a tight-fitting black biogel combat uniform, a hideous gas mask, and a faint light blue light on the lens. At this time, the sentinel felt something was wrong. He turned his head suddenly, and when he saw the black figure behind him, he jumped up in fright. But then a hand suddenly appeared from behind him and covered his mouth, while a cold dagger was pressed against his throat. There is a radio station in Shajin town, where is it? The black figure behind him asked coldly. The sentry felt the hand covering his mouth loosen, but the dagger on his throat was stuck tighter. He hurriedly whispered, "West of the city. West of the city. Follow the road below until you reach the station. It's next to it. During the ion storm, the radio station's transmission tower will be retracted underground. Thank you." After the black shadow finished speaking, he pressed hard on the sentinel's arteries, and the sentinel immediately passed out. At this time, the black figure behind the sentinel came out from the corner. He was wearing a pig-face gas mask with red lenses. It was Hank, the current captain of the Wolf Pack team. And the black shadow before was Bertha. At this time, Xian also came out from the other side, holding a small device in her hand. She pressed the button of the device, and a burst of high-frequency sound waves was immediately emitted from the device, and through the signal of the sound waves, all the surrounding terrain within a radius of 100 meters was scanned. The next second, a white light flashed with a swish, and a person wearing a college protective suit appeared here instantly. He didn't say much, he lifted the sentry from the ground, nodded at Hank, and there was another swish out of thin air disappeared. "Don't waste time, this ion storm is our best cover," Hank said in a deep voice. Xian and Bertha nodded, and the three of them bent down together, followed the shadows and ran out of the post, heading straight for the radio station. There were no obstacles on the road, and they entered the radio station smoothly. There were 3 staff members on duty, but Hank and the others easily dealt with them and knocked them all out. The 4 eyes did the same, and pressed the device again. Soon, with a few swishing sounds, several people from the academy appeared out of thin air. They also didn't say much, and very tacitly picked up the 3 people who were knocked out, and then disappeared here again through molecular teleportation. This time Hank and the others did not leave, but spread out and carefully guarded the radio station's office to prevent anyone from entering. But in the ion storm, no one would run around full of food. About an hour later, several white lights flashed again, and 3 people appeared in the radio office out of thin air. They were the 3 people who were knocked out just now. Whether it's appearance, clothing, expression, or posture, they are all exactly the same as those 3 people. The 3 came to Hank and reported, "The 3rd generation of synthetics, J6-32, K7-89, and 09-72 report to you, Chief Hank." Hank nodded, "Okay, I won't talk about your performance issues, just do what you should do, we have nothing to do here. Thanks to Samwick for the reward of 500 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 520. 513 Replace. This ion storm lasted for more than 30 hours. When the black clouds in the sky finally dissipated and the sun shone on the earth again, the residents here finally breathed a sigh of relief and began to come out of the houses in twos and threes to count the ions. Damage caused by the storm. And as a town within the range of influence of this ion storm, Shajin town also woke up from its deep sleep. An older soldier carrying a Gao-3 assault rifle came to the sentry tower on the edge of the town, opened the door and walked in, and said to the sentry inside who was watching the distance with the binoculars, "Okay, Wang Long, don't worry. Put on a show, it's okay, go home and find your wife to warm the bed." The sentry named Wang Long turned his head, looked at the veteran, then nodded, picked up his Gao-3 assault rifle from the side, walked over and patted him on the shoulder and said, "Thank you for your hard work, old Zhang, I also almost tired." However, at this moment, Lao Zhang's expression changed, and he grabbed Wang Long's arm. "Wait a minute." Wang Long was walking out, his face changed slightly when he was pulled by Lao Zhang, his other hand silently clenched his fist, and at the same time, he quickly looked up the memory he inherited from the deity, thinking about where he had flaws. I only heard Lao Zhang snorted, and said earnestly, "Look at your energetic appearance, did you secretly sleep yesterday?" "Ah. I know that the ion storm shift is very tiring, and I have to stare at the dark for more than a day out the window, but if our squad leader finds out that you slept during the night shift, you will have to be locked up again. And you know, we are sentinels for a living after all." Only then did Wang Long loosen his clenched fist, and said with a smile, "Okay, old Zhang, I just squinted for 5 minutes at most. I really didn't steal sleep, it's just that I've been very energetic recently." "Real? I'm lying to you, I'm a humming dog." "Okay, okay. Knowing that you are young and energetic, I am an old man." Lao Zhang didn't say much, he waved his hands pretending to be angry and pushed Wang Long out. Wang Long suddenly turned around and asked meaningfully, "By the way, Lao Zhang, I heard that the wife of Feng Wang, the platoon leader of the 4th row, ran away with someone? Did you just find out? Feng Wang is probably drinking alone at home right now." All right, go back and watch your wife, I'll keep an eye on you here." Lao Zhang began to chase people away. "Oh, alone, drinking," a sneer flashed across Wang Long's mouth. In the office of Shajin Town radio station, 3 figures are busy. The 3 people who were originally staying in the office on duty were coming outside in accordance with the operating procedures, starting the motor to raise the underground signal transmission tower. But when it was lifted, they made some minor modifications to the signal antenna of the transmission tower. "Wang Bin, what did you guys do on the antenna?" At this moment, there was a loud shout from outside, only to see a fat middle-aged man standing at the door, shouting angrily. "Oh, director. There is something wrong with this antenna, we need to repair it." The man named Wang Bin replied, or his real name was J6-32. "Maintenance S. All antenna repairs must be reported. This is a strategic facility. Come down for me. Show me what you have in your hand." The disc, the anger value suddenly reached full point, and cursed loudly like a lion, "Who the hell of you trampled my disc of the most dazzling national style? This is my radio station at 4 o'clock every afternoon. Fixed music." Wang Bin took out another disc and said, "I'm going to replace the most dazzling ethnic style with this one, the blues. Blues NMB." The director began to swear, "I'm not done with you today. Go. Follow me to the captain of the guard." However, seeing that Wang Bin's originally panicked expression suddenly became extremely indifferent, he said lightly, "Okay, deal with it according to Special Event 039. What the hum are you talking about? I mean, you saw something you shouldn't see. Wang Ben replied lightly. It was only at this moment that the director felt that something was wrong. He suddenly turned around and wanted to run, but found that the other two people had arrived beside him at some point, sandwiching him between the left and the right. You guys. Help, the cry for help was blocked before it could exit. The director wanted to struggle, but found that the strength of the two people next to him was unimaginable, and they couldn't break free at all. But the director knows them, these two people are usually so weak that they can't even kill a chicken. In his terrified eyes, he saw Wang Ben take out a device and press it, followed by a swish, a white light flashed, and a person wearing a full-body protective suit appeared out of nowhere in front of him. This person looked at the subdued director, and said coldly, "Have you been exposed? This kind of mistake should be made less, otherwise it will be fatal. If you still want to complete the mission and return to the ruined city to obtain formal citizenship, then give me all the care." As soon as he heard the ruined city, the director immediately understood everything. His body trembled violently as if he was sifting chaff, as if he had already understood his solution. The three people headed by Wang Ben bowed their heads and looked at each other, and said in a low voice, "I'm sorry, we will definitely be careful. But this director is of great help to us and can be replaced." "Of course I know." The visitor glanced at the director again, "Knock him unconscious." A sharp pain came from the back of the neck, and the director passed out when his eyes went dark. After a while, he opened his eyes again and found that he had come to a strange place. Everything around here is white, clean, tidy, and spotless. The director has only seen such places in GDI's promotional videos. Sustaining such a place in the yellow zone, where tiberium mines sprawl, obviously requires enormous resources. "This is the blue zone?" the director asked with difficulty. A few people in white coats, rubber gloves, and masks appeared in front of him. They ignored the director's question at all and were just preparing. One of them said, "Have you finished modulating the appearance of the synthetic human? We need to start memory extraction as soon as possible. The director of the radio station can't disappear for too long." "Who are you? Let me go. Let me go." The director struggled violently, but found that he was tightly bound by the belt, and he couldn't break free at all. At this time, another person came over. As soon as he saw this person, the director's eyes suddenly widened in horror. He was dumbfounded, as if a big hand of terror grabbed his heart, making him speechless. This person is astonishingly himself. She was wearing his clothes, and her appearance, figure, and even the secret birthmark were exactly the same as her own. The only difference is that this person's eyes are dull, as if he has no soul. Then this man who was exactly like him came to the bed next to him and lay down beside him, motionless. Those white coats put a helmet connected with countless wires on the man's head. A long steel needle protruded from the helmet, and the white coats walked towards him with the steel needle. Don't, help, help." The scream stopped abruptly, and the white coat had already pierced the steel needle through the director's nostrils, straight to the brain. The machine started to work, and the director twitched violently like a cramp, and even the belt rattled as it was pulled. The white light flashed again, and the director appeared in the station office out of thin air. He looked at Wang Ben and the three of them, and said, "Go ahead, modify the antenna and increase the strength of the signal transmission. In this way, our signal can cover to most parts of Torch City. But now that Torch City is mobilizing, broadcast signal coverage used to violate regulations." Wang Ben said. A smile appeared on the corner of the director's mouth. "Then I'll talk to the captain of the guard, aren't he and I old friends? Replace him? No, the higher the status of the person, the more people they pay attention to, the greater the vulnerability after the replacement. Now our existence must be kept absolutely secret. I know how to deal with the captain of the guard, leave it to me." The director pointed on head, and then put a device that transforms the antenna in Wangbin's hand. Then he walked over to the player and stepped on the disc of the most dazzling national style, but his expression did not change at all. He picked up the blues disc from the table and put it in the player, and the soothing tune of the blues immediately spread to the surrounding several kilometers through the antenna. While listening to the music with his legs crossed, the director said to himself, "We need to get the headquarters to produce a sound wave signal that matches the style of music here." All Heaven's Unlimited Bass. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 521. 514, Molecular Teleportation. I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart. The exotic blues music turned into radio waves and spread out through Shenzhen Town radio station. Within this range, as long as you turn on the radio and tune to the corresponding channel, you can listen to this soothing tone. At the same time, in the underground laboratory of the Nuwa base in the ruined city, a group of scientists from the college are busy in a large laboratory specially vacated. A huge computer mainframe is built on one side of the laboratory. This mainframe is like a wall, with a height of 4.5 meters and a width of about 10 meters. There are 64 brain-controlled robots fixed on the mainframe. These robots are very quickly and mechanically typing on the keyboard in front of him. They don't need displays, since all data is directly connected to their biological brains. However, Justin Eyre, who was standing on the sidelines, was full of praise for this strange large computer, as expected of Rocco's latest technology. This large brain-controlled mainframe has increased our computing speed by at least 20 times. Having said that, this is the limit that vacuum tube technology can achieve at present. It is better to complete the data exchange between your computer and the computers in this world as soon as possible. In terms of work efficiency, the computers here are faster. But considering the existence of the ion storm, the technology of the vacuum tube cannot be lost. Chen Yuyan was the one who spoke, and he also came to the scene to observe because what he was about to do was very important. To be honest, it's quite difficult, because our main programming language is still binary coded, and many programs in this world are coded in hexadecimal. In addition, the hardware is very different. Although transcoding can be performed, direct data connection still requires more work, Justin Eyre replied. Chen Yuyan nodded. He looked at the small dots on the small screen in front of him that gradually became richer, and said, "These dots are the terrain transmitted by the sound of the radio station? I originally thought that this terrain would be three-dimensional." Justin Eyre shook his head and said, "Three-dimensional, how is it possible? Such a large-scale sound wave imaging can only do so much. The principle of determining the coordinates of the molecular transmitter is similar to that of sonar, and it is determined based on the reflection of sound waves. It's not that there is something, so as to ensure that people will not be teleported directly into the stone when teleporting. Of course, this is all that's needed. By the way, you don't want to see molecules fail to teleport and become one with the stone human body. So that's why I will never let the molecular teleporter teleport me." Chen Yuyan said. "Is this why you asked me to use this molecular teleporter?" Deacon walked over, looked at Justin Eyre, and said with a bit of a mean smile, "I'm still worried that this guy from the academy intentionally I teleported to a toilet. Now we are on the same boat, and I also voted for it in the previous synth meeting. You should have no reason to be hostile to me." Justin Eyre obviously has no sense of humor, and he said very seriously, "But that doesn't change the fact that I hate people in the academy." Deacon said with a smile, making it hard to figure out what he was thinking. "This is not the scope of my work." Justin Eyre replied, and then he pointed to the molecular teleporter and said, "Now you stand on it. After successful teleportation, I will also give you the necessary money and weapons sent over." Deacon curled his lips. Although he said that, he still stood up without hesitation, which also showed that his actual behavior style was completely different from what he said. Justin Air stuffed a device the size of a ping-pong ball into Deacon's hand and said, "This is an ultrasonic locator. After pressing the button, it will send a signal to the molecular transmitter, and then we will send people over immediately, but the energy inside can only be used 3 times, and you need to use it carefully." Well, it doesn't really matter, because as long as the music on the radio is playing, we can support you with personnel and materials at any time. When the music starts. When? Deacon asked again. Now it's blues music. We mix content containing ultrasonic signals into the music. The ears of ordinary people and even most instruments cannot detect it, but it can provide transmission coordinates for molecular transmitters. In fact, the most suitable thing is we use music that is more suitable for the local style, but due to time constraints, we have to use the previous set. Justin Air said. It reminds me of the bad old days, Deacon said. Look forward, Deacon. Here, we can create a bigger and better future. Chun Yuyan walked over and said, holding Deacon's hand. Otherwise, why do you think I accepted your invitation to come to this world? Deacon smiled, raised 2 fingers and saluted casually. Then, let's get started. Justin Air activated the molecular transmission device after confirming the condition of the equipment for the last time. All I saw was that Deacon's body instantly turned into a flash of white light and disappeared into the sky in an instant. At this time, even the surrounding lights dimmed a lot, and it took several seconds for them to recover. The power consumption of the molecular teleporter is horrific. It's not enough to use a whole 10 Tier 2 Tiberium power stations. Chun Yuyan said with emotion. This is an inevitable result, and with the increase of the transmission distance, the size of the transmission object becomes larger, and the energy consumption needs to grow exponentially. Therefore, our next plan is to put the third phase of the project, the controllable nuclear fusion reactor, rebuild one in this world, Justin Air said. Chun Yuyan nodded. He has already scanned the third phase of the project, and what he got is complete data, so he unlocked the technology. But the problem is that this controllable nuclear fusion reactor is actually a level 6 technology. This makes it impossible for him to manufacture or relocate now. Because the third phase of the project was a joint project between Rocco and the Federal Institute of Technology. After more than 200 years of continuous modification and expansion, the structure of the reactor in the headquarters of the institute is extremely complicated, and it will move the whole body. The only way to disassemble it is to rebuild one based on the data. But this is a long-term job, after all, it is a 6th-level technology. Of course, this also allowed Chun Yuyan to experience the level of black technology in the world of radiation again. This world is so contradictory. In many inconspicuous places, a technology that is so high and scary can always appear in your face. What is the limit distance of the molecular teleporter? Chun Yuyan asked. Theoretically, there is no distance limit. As long as enough energy can be provided, it is fine to send things to Neptune. However, the farther the distance, the more difficult it is to grasp the situation of the target point, and the greater the possibility of accidents. And the energy consumption is even more frightening. Maybe the power stations all over the world can't send an atom to Neptune. By the way, the current limit speed of our molecular teleporter is about 1,000th of the speed of light, which is about 300 kilometers per second. However, we are also trying our best to improve this aspect. There are ways to increase the speed, but the cost performance is not high. Justin Air replied. He fiddled with the computer while talking. It seems that Mr. Diagon has successfully entered the interior of Torch City. Next, I will arrange a batch of money, weapons, and personnel to go there according to the plan. Drago and Luo Chen will also follow. They are more familiar with this world. However, these 2 guys have undergone mechanized transformation, and it is really a waste of energy to transmit. Chun Yuyan patted him on the shoulder in satisfaction. I have to say that Justin Air is really a very useful talent. He was originally the director of the synthetic human recycling department of the college. Maybe he is very average in scientific research, but he was in charge of all the external operations of the college before, and he has very rich experience in all aspects, and now he has become Chanyuyan's most effective garrison. I will try my best to satisfy you with energy. In short, we must use the molecular transmitter to the extreme. I want Lu Weiwei to find out after launching an attack on the ruined city that his city is riddled with holes. Chanyuyan, a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. Thanks to Samwick for the reward of 10,000 starting coins. Thank you for the 1,000 starting coins rewarded by Star Sea Rangers. Thank you for the 500 starting coins rewarded by Sakura Wyume. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 522. 515, Old World Blues. I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart. Lu Weiwei suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of the music, frowning. Although his eyes are tightly closed, he still seems to be able to see through all obstacles and reach the source of the music. Behind him, Marlo and Ni Dong were somewhat surprised by Lu Weiwei's reaction. Ni Dong asked, "Did you find anything?" "Old Lu. This music looks very familiar." Lu Weiwei said coldly. His Drake-like voice combined with his cold demeanor made people feel even more uncomfortable. When Ni Dong heard this, he also became serious. The three of them are currently patrolling the Torch City, and they suddenly heard this music, and Lu Weiwei also said that it is very familiar. This certainly does not mean that he has heard it in this world, otherwise there is no need to bring it up. Then there is only one possibility left, another world. He turned his head and winked at the patrol behind him, and immediately several soldiers followed the sound and looked for it. A few minutes later, they escorted a middle-aged man over. A soldier kicked the middle-aged man on the knee, causing him to kneel down immediately, and then Lu Weiwei asked, "Are you playing the English song just now?" "Yes." No. I didn't play it." The middle-aged man was obviously frightened, and quickly explained, "It's playing on the radio." "Radio? Bastard. When we started mobilizing, we issued a ban. The surrounding radio stations cannot extend their signals to Torch City." Ni Dong said angrily. "In my heart I have but one desire. And that one is you." The melodious music is still playing, and a sense of decadence and luxury emerges spontaneously, as if returning to the United States in the 1960s. Lu Weiwei just felt that the music was very familiar, but he couldn't tell what it was or where he heard it. He just felt bored in his heart, snorted coldly, and a cold breath emanated from him. The middle-aged man immediately shivered from the cold, and he continued to ask in that ugly voice, "Which radio station?" "The radio station in Shaijin town." The middle-aged man replied. "Go and call the director of the Shaijin town radio station to my office, and then inform the Shaijin town security captain Zhang Chao to ask him to temporarily suspend that radio station and investigate why he illegally extended the signal to Torch City." Lu Weiwei said. He waved his hand, "Okay, it's none of your business here." After returning to the office, Lu Weiwei sat on the sofa and meditated quietly. After a long time, he suddenly raised his head and said, "It's radiation." "Radiation?" Ni Dong frowned. "I've heard of it, it's a game, right? Have you ever played it?" "When I was in college, a roommate was a fan of the Radiation series." Lu Weiwei recalled, "The reason why I remember this music is because one day I found him crying while watching a video, and he was still chanting 10 songs. It's been 10 years, and I don't understand these words. And the beginning of that video is this song. Because he played that video many times, I was more impressed." "Then have you played Radiation?" Ni Dong asked. "I haven't played it. I didn't like playing games when I was in college." Lu Weiwei answered truthfully. "What about you? Ni Dong turned to Marlo. Marlo waved her hand and said, I like the Spice Girls. Okay, so the question now is this song in the game, or is it a song borrowed from the game's video? If it's the latter, then we have no way of tracking it down, and we can't even determine it. Is it an event worthy of attention? After all, we need to deal with a lot of things now. Ni Dong said. You can't let go of any clues, and you must investigate thoroughly. I don't understand the world of radiation, but it is a post-war apocalyptic world. There should be a little different technology from this world, but because it is the apocalypse, the number should be not much. Of course, the most important thing now is to call the director of the Shajin Town radio station and ask to confirm the source of the music. Lu Weiwei said. About an hour later, the director of Shajin Town radio station came to Lu Weiwei's office. This balding middle-aged man seemed a little embarrassed when facing a big man like Lu Weiwei. Sir, are you looking for me? Tell me what's going on with the broadcast signal? Ni Dong asked. The director lowered his head and replied, our signal transmission tower suffered some damage in the ion storm that just ended, so I asked the people below to repair it, and it turned out that the signal power was stronger than before after the repair. It should be used for the sake of better parts, the head of the station said with his head down. I remember that your Shajin Town radio station, in addition to the necessary political programs, has a fixed music program from 4 to 6 p.m. every day, and it will definitely play the most dazzling national style. But why did it change to the song today? Blues. What was your previous preference? Ni Dong asked again. The disc of the most dazzling ethnic style was trampled by this bastard Wang Bin. The director said angrily, that is my favorite disc. But this guy was trampled by me. So I had no other choice, so I randomly found a disc, which was brought to me by a friend of mine from the jurisdiction of GDI, and it is said to be songs from the US side. What's your friend's name? Ni Dong asked. Wuxia. He's a businessman. Lu Weiwei slightly turned his head and glanced at Ni Dong. Ni Dong nodded slightly, indicating that Wuxia did exist, and the director did not lie. Before, they had investigated the director. So he didn't say anything more, just didn't say a word, his closed eyes kept facing the direction of the director. Ni Dong asked some more questions, and the director answered fluently without any flaws. So he had no choice but to say, you increase the signal of the radio station privately, which may have a certain impact on the electromagnetic environment of our military, so according to the rules and regulations, you need to pay a fine and suspend business for rectification. Go to the local guard captain to get it, punish it, it's none of your business here. The head of the station lowered his head in fear, and said in a low voice, yes, yes. If there is nothing wrong, I will leave first. Wait a minute. Lu Weiwei suddenly stopped the director, his expression was a little scary and serious, although you were very nervous and scared, when you mentioned the disc of the most dazzling national style, you were very incomparable angry. But why has your heart rate been 70 since you entered the office? No more, no less. I don't know. The director said, very puzzled. Arrest him. Interrogate him carefully. Lu Weiwei snorted coldly and pointed at the director. Ni Dong was also a little confused now. He looked at Lu Weiwei and asked, but, what is the interrogation? Anything. His background, his whereabouts, his social connections. Everything. Also, take him for a full body scan. Lu Weiwei said very solemnly. Isn't this too exaggerated? Maro couldn't accept it, it's just a trivial matter. His heart rate is suspicious, and the blues song he plays on the radio is also suspicious, Lu Weiwei said. It doesn't matter between the two, right? Aren't we just looking for trouble? I don't care if it's related or not, but as long as there is something suspicious, it must be thoroughly investigated. You are completely unreasonable. You are spitting blood on people. The director was anxious and shouted. Lu Weiwei did not see any movement, only heard a bang, and the director was sent flying by an invisible force, hitting the wall and spitting out a big mouthful of blood. Lu Weiwei said indifferently, in this torch city, I don't need to reason. Take it down. After the director was taken away by the guards, Ni Dong turned his head and asked, Are you worried that he is a spy from the ruined city? Ruined city? No way. They don't have this ability. I'm only worried that this is a spy of GDI. If our actions are detected by GDI, then we will be in big trouble. Lu Weiwei said. Ni Dong nodded and said, Indeed, it's better to be cautious. At this stage, any abnormal situation must be eliminated in the bud. Besides, I'm actually a little worried about the ruined city. Since their spies escaped last time, they should knowing about our military expansion and mobilization. What if they go to GDI? Over the ruined city, Chi Wei, the former Black Wolf tribe, has a Nod mining troop number. And Hammer town of Linhuo also shows a pro-Nod tendency. So, if they are hostile to us like this, at most it will be regarded as a conflict within Nod by the people above. But if they let GDI get involved, then the nature will change, do you understand? Lu Weiwei said flatly. So, in fact, we don't have to worry about the ruined city at all? Maro asked. Lu Weiwei rubbed his chin and said, Our first task is to integrate the major forces in the entire East Third District, and expand the army to 100,000 within half a year. During this process, we should give priority to plowing the ruined city, which is not troublesome. We just have to play with the tempo. Kane's biggest goal in the entire Eastern Conference is to force the dragons to fight and nothing else, remember that. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 523. 516 Third Party. Torch City sent troops to attack a large settlement in the west yesterday, killed all the managers of the settlement, confiscated all the tanks and armored vehicles inside, and appointed new officials and garrisons. This is their last 2 weeks. This is the fourth military operation since then, and they all chose the west side of Torch City, as if deliberately avoiding us on the east side. In the conference room of the Nuwa base in the ruined city, Lin Huo said while flipping through the documents in his hand. Does their movement show a particularly clear goal now? Chen Yuyan asked with a frown. Jin Shan, dressed in military uniform and with a serious face, stood up and answered meticulously, according to the analysis of the staff department, the military forces of Torch City have not shown a very obvious target direction so far. But according to our judgment, they are now. The goal should be to integrate those small settlements around them and become their own new strength. As he said that, he picked up another document in front of him and said, in addition, we can already receive the channels of the Nod Brotherhood, including radio signals and TV signals. However, TV is not yet popular in the ruined city, and more residents are listened to it on the radio. I have sent people to control the situation and stop the residents from listening to Nod radio. Then what are the main contents of Nod's radio programs? Chen Yuyan asked. The main purpose is to encourage people to participate in the jihad, to fight against GDI, to return the entire earth to the embrace of the Brotherhood, and to go to the final sublimation with Cain. Around this central topic, there are many different programs. It is worth watching. What is mentioned is that there are also Cain's own speeches, but according to our comparison, these speeches are just recordings of some speeches made 30 years ago, and it is not yet possible to directly prove whether Cain is alive, Jinshan said. Tomoko Gaoliang asked suddenly, is there only one Nod radio program? Lin Huo smiled and said, you asked a good question. The answer is that there are many. I asked the people in the staff department to analyze these different radio programs, and found that these programs all have one thing in common, that is, pulling Kane's big banner let those people join their own ranks. So, yes, these shows are independent of the major warlords under Nod. That is to say, this sends a message all warlords under Nod have begun to expand their armies and prepare for war. Any other valuable information? Chen Yuyan asked again. Jin Shan shook his head and said, there are some news programs, but most of them are deceptive content, and it is difficult to screen out valuable content. One of the bigger news that can be confirmed at present is that Nod's most powerful warlord one, General Hassan, who has almost occupied the entire Africa and the Middle East, is launching an internal anti-revolutionary movement. His million-strong army is attacking everywhere to eliminate those Nod warlords in the name of betraying the brotherhood of Nod and Kane. However, we all know that General Hassan is just a puppet of GDI. GDI provides financial and weapon support behind it, so that this wretch can sit in a high position. Lin Huo added with a sneer, but I want to remind yours is, although this news is semi-public among the experimenters, there is no direct evidence to prove General Hassan's position. And because of his huge power, he is willing to attach himself to him to achieve a powerful experiment for personal purposes. There are not a few of them. So, although General Hassan is Nod's traitor in the plot, in reality, he is still the product of a game of power in all aspects, so no matter whether his ideas are still the same as in the plot, his strong strength it hasn't decreased at all. Tomoko Gaoliang said. This matter is too far away from us. What I need to know is the situation in the 3rd East District where we are now. Chan Yuyan said. To be honest, there is almost none. Not only the 3rd East District, but the entire East District has no information. Lin Huo said very seriously. Why? Lin Huo held up 2 fingers and said, there are 2 aspects to answer. The first is the plot aspect. The plot related to Yan Kingdom in the plot of Command and Conquer is that it was mentioned in the first generation that Yan Kingdom and Nod have a cooperative relationship. But the 2 sides should have broken up later, because there is a plot in which Wang Huchen, a scientist from Yan Kingdom, helped GDI develop a space-based ion cannon, and it became a key weapon to defeat Nod. Chen Yuyan nodded, I've heard some locals mention this before. But other than that, there is almost no description of the 3 world-class wars that broke out in the Command and Conquer series of Yan Kingdom, and they don't know what happened here. Lin Huo said. And what about the other side? Another aspect is based on reality. According to our investigation and understanding so far, neither Nod nor GDI has any intention to launch a large-scale war within the scope of the eastern region. The 2 sides are just constantly expanding their military strength and power. What's more, apart from some large cities and warlords in the eastern region, the information on many places in the eastern region is almost blank, Lin Huo said. What does this mean? Chen Yuyan's face became serious. This shows that there may be a third-party force in the eastern district, and it is very powerful, Jinshan added. The Forgotten? Chen Yuyan thought of General Iron Dragon. It's possible, but we can't confirm it. But the Forsaken who are mainly active in the red zone shouldn't have such a big influence. In short, it's just a fog. Lin Huo said. Chen Yuyan nodded, and said slowly, then what conclusion do we have when we integrate all the information we have now? Jinshan said, because of the signal shielding on Nod's side, it is difficult for us to receive information from GDI. However, judging from the intelligence collected by the intelligence agents we sent recently, Nod seems to be only expanding, and does not intend to expand on a large scale. The meaning of attacking GDI. Combined with our previous judgment, I think Nod seems to be waiting for that mysterious force to express its position. Chan Yuyan nodded. The plan to use the 3rd-generation synthetic human combined with a molecular transporter to replace personnel is a top secret, and Jin Shan doesn't know about it. For these intelligence sources, the explanation within the Legion of Ruins is that a very efficient intelligence department has been established. He then asked, what about the conclusion that is closely related to our ruined city? Jin Shan replied, there are 2 points. First, in such an environment, it is difficult to judge when Torch City will take the initiative to attack us. Because their main purpose is to expand their power, they may come here when they are in a good mood provoke us. This is a very big impact on our plan to defeat the main force of Torch City within a month. After all, we only have a chance in defensive operations. Second, the situation in the entire Eastern District is currently in a delicate balance. If this balance is upset, catastrophic consequences may occur. But from another perspective, this may be our opportunity. It is precisely because all parties are unwilling to upset the balance that some of our actions will be tolerated. For example, annexing Torch City. Lin Huo smiled, if we operate well enough, then if we annex Torch City, what we're waiting for may not be Nod's revenge, but their solicitation. Do you think I will agree to Nod's solicitation? To be a more advanced cannon fodder? Chen Yuyan asked rhetorically. It's just an option, Lin Huo said. Chen Yuyan no longer continued this topic, he turned to Jinshan and said, then what is before us now is that we cannot be sure when Torch City will attack us. This is the biggest variable for our upcoming expedition. So, we now need to let Torch City launch an attack in advance. That's right. This should be the job of the newly established Mysterious Intelligence Department. Jin Shan said. Try it. Chen Yuyan smiled. Thank you for the 10,000 starting coins rewarded by Shiliang. Thank you for the 100 starting coins rewarded by Sakura Wuyume. Congratulations to Shiliang for becoming the 3rd leader of Infinite Base, thank you for your support. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 524. 517 What are you doing? Ha 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 ha. Is it finally our turn to play? I thought that Boss Yan will rely on those synths to conquer the world in the future. Beltway said with a big laugh. Synthetics are only used for replacement and lurking, to provide us with information sources. But I do think that this type of special operations will be replaced by synthetics with molecular transmitters in the future. Hanka said while sorting out his equipment. Then we are useless? Bertha asked lightly from behind. When that day really comes, I'll just retire. Spectre was debugging his mechanical arm, however, I like this world very much. His arm was cut off by Victor before, and then Chen Yuyan sent him to the academy in the world of radiation to install a prosthetic for him. Between a robotic arm and a synthetic arm, Ghost chose a robotic arm because it could be modified to suit the mission. As for the synthetic arm, that is no different from the normal arm, that is an option after retirement. The Ghost pressed lightly on his mechanical arm, only to hear a soft sound, and a holographic scope and a miniature barrel with a caliber of only about 3 mm popped out from his arm. He nodded in satisfaction, retracted the barrel, and put on his gloves. It can be strengthened. Four Eyes said suddenly. Strengthen. Just like Boss Yan and Yi, the kind that can eat raw tiberium mine? Beltway was a little disapproving. There was a flash of teasing in the corners of her 4 eyes, and she suddenly grabbed Beltway's hand. Beltway didn't take it seriously at first, because the Wolf Pack team often competed with each other during training, and he also knew that the power of 4 Eyes was not too great. But then, Beltway's eyes widened, and he suddenly discovered that the hand holding his 4 eyes was unexpectedly powerful. Beltway tried his best to break Xian's hand away, and 4 Eyes also became serious, with solemn eyes. The two of them held each other for about half a minute. Beltway finally pulled his hand out, but he was already sweating a lot. Beltway looked at the 4 Eyes in amazement. He was able to understand just now that the power of the 4 Eyes is already comparable to him. According to the results of previous training, if 4 Eyes maintains the current flexibility, plus the strengthened strength, he will definitely be pressed to the ground by 4 Eyes in a real fight. This is strengthening. It consumes a resource called points. The specific principle is not clear. Four Eyes said indifferently, I remember Chanyuyan told you. Hanka also said aside, because you and the ghost have limb injuries, you need to heal the limb injuries first and then strengthen them. The academy is making the feet that match you. But now because of the military pressure of Torch City, we must first do something. What should I do? The reinforcement will be left behind. Why don't I know? No, don't you all know? Beltway said, pointing to his nose. I told you in the last meeting. Bertha snorted coldly, but you seem to have fallen asleep. Huh. Oh, hee, Beltway scratched his head and didn't know what to say. The others ignored him and walked over to stand on the platform of the molecular transmitter. Beltway also hurried over and stood on the platform. At this time, an old man's voice came from the loudspeaker next to the laboratory, stand up straight and don't move, I will scan your physical condition and equipment this time, damn it. What's going on? Hank, Bertha, Four Eyes. Your physical condition is a little abnormal. The energy level is more than 5 times that of ordinary people. Also, why do you have to bring so much equipment? This is a mission requirement, Hank said. Then can't they be sent separately? The old man asked again. No, the mission requires it. Hank didn't care about anything, just answered lightly. Are you kidding me? The existing power supply system can't satisfy this transmission. Wait, I'll deploy more electricity. After the old man finished speaking, he picked up the phone and yelled loudly, notify me at the Black Wolf base. The power supply needs to be temporarily cut off for 10 minutes. All production will be temporarily stopped. Get out. I don't care what the plan is. Now the action of the Wolf team is the highest priority. Have an opinion? If you have an opinion, you can go to Boss Yan. Take over the electricity for me now. After a while, the molecular teleporter finally started to operate, and several energy nodes around the platform became brighter, and finally became incandescent. In contrast, the surrounding lights began to flicker unsteadily. If one could look down on the entire ruined city from the sky, one could clearly see that the lights of Nuwa Base and Heilang Base had been turned off in an instant. Swish! An extremely dazzling white light flashed, and the figures of 5 people disappeared from the platform in an instant. Almost at the same moment, a team of 5 people appeared in a factory building, and there was a person dressed as a worker standing beside them. The man was not surprised at the sudden appearance of the Wolf Pack team, but went up to him and said, I am a 3rd-generation synthetic man, numbered I-9-70, and my replacement is the deputy director of the production technology department of this nuclear power plant. Zhaogang. Then he took out an ID card and handed it to Hank, saying, this is the ID card of Qian Hao, the worker on duty today. You can enter the turbine room through this card. We need to get into the reactor room, Hank said. This is a bit difficult, and we can only do this at the moment. The synthetic man said. Hank didn't force it, nodded and got the ID card. Torch City, the Combat Command Center. Has the director of the Shaijin Town radio station made any changes recently? Lu Weiwei asked. No, we investigated his relationship, and it is still the same as usual. He knows all the people he should know, and he doesn't know all the people he shouldn't know. Except that he may be a bit dull after being caught by us for interrogation last time. Nothing abnormal. By the way, he seems to have vented all his depression on his wife, and his wife has been radiant these days. Ni Dong said with a smile, spreading his hands. Boss, why do you keep staring at that director? We conducted a thorough review of him, including a full physical examination, and there was nothing abnormal at all. He is just a completely healthy ordinary person. Last time he transformed the radio station it was probably just a whim, and it didn't cause any negative effects. Mero said. Totally healthy, is it possible for a greasy middle-aged man in his 40s to be completely healthy? Lu Weiwei asked indifferently. Sigh, you're a little brazen when you say that, boss. It's hard to start our work if we keep entangled in this matter. Even Ni Dong was trying to dissuade him this time. It's just intuition. I think there is something wrong with the director, or because he has no problem at all, so I think there is something wrong with him. Lu Weiwei took a deep breath and said, I know that it may be a bit embarrassing for you to say that. But you should think about it, since we met and formed a team, until now, has my intuition made a mistake? But this time, we have to find something extraordinary from an ordinary person. It's too. Maro was also a little impatient, but she still didn't want to disobey Lu Weiwei. I understand, now we don't have the energy to waste too much time on him. Then, let's create an accident. Maybe such an emergency can show him off. Ni Dong's face became serious, and he slowly said, it suddenly occurred to me just now, if your intuition is correct, then it is possible that we will face an unprecedented terrifying situation. Then, just as Lu Weiwei opened his mouth to speak, a sudden change occurred. Boom! A huge explosion came from outside the window, followed by a violent earthquake, and the glass of some residential buildings in front of them was instantly shattered.